Shabbat Shalom. O Israel, my heart breaks for you, for your suffering, for your pain, and for the tragic losses you've incurred in this catastrophe we now call war. O Israel, my soul aches for you and for all the families and communities who have been shattered by the terror and violence inflicted upon you. O Israel, my eyes cry tears of mourning for you, for the worlds upon worlds that will no longer be, and for the futures we will never see. 1 week ago today on Shabbat and Simchat Torah, Israel was brazenly attacked by the terrorist group Hamas. As we now know, the incursion was barbarous, merciless, and cruel, with more than 1,300 killed and 3,000 injured, many of them civilians. This horrific assault has impacted all strata of Israeli society, and the scale of its atrocity and trauma is completely beyond measure. Today, there are countless families planning funerals and countless funerals that have already occurred. So many Israelis are still in search of missing or kidnapped family members, and so many must now worry over loved ones serving on the front lines. All the while, Israel's citizens are still running in and out of bomb shelters, racing for cover, and praying to live yet another day. Still, even as the war sirens continue to blare, even as rockets continue to fall, and even as the specter of battle looms on the horizon, the spirit of Israel remains strong. Moreover, the spirit of generosity, kindness, and truly exceptional selflessness lives on in our people and in our land. All across the country, Israelis are rushing to volunteer and serve their neighbors. Blood donation centers, many of them stadiums, are full to the brim with lines out the door, so many coming to support the wounded and the injured. And throughout Israel, volunteers have been stepping in for workers who've been called away to the army and organizing supplies for families who've had to relocate or leave their homes. Donations of every kind, whether clothes or food or equipment or military gear, are pouring into the country, and people like my friend Doron Harel are packing up their vans, risking their safety and driving hours upon hours to get IDF soldiers all the supplies and comforts they need right now. It's extraordinary, says Israeli Elke Jacobs. Right now, the spirit of Israel is here in the streets, in the restaurants, packing clothes. Edgar, this morning you spoke so insightfully about the story of Cain and Abel, a story that feels all too relevant today. As you shared, after Cain kills Abel, God turns to Cain and asks of Abel's whereabouts. Cain infamously replies, Lo yadati hashomer achi anochi? I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? This question has echoed throughout civilizations ever since. Are we responsible for those in our midst? Must we look out for one another, or must we simply look out for ourselves? In the midst of these agonizing times in Israel, it has been inspiring to see so many people stand up and say, yes, I am responsible for those in my midst, and yes, I must look out for my fellow citizen, and yes, I am my brother's keeper, my sister's keeper, my neighbor's keeper, and my community's keeper. Indeed, the stories of people showing up for one another in this moment of devastation and horror are truly astounding, reminding us that humanity is not yet lost. Take Yosef, a Bedouin Arab who lives in the south of Israel. Yosef was driving his van near the nature party that was ambushed by Hamas early last Saturday. Seeing the chaos and confusion, Yosef did not drive away. Instead, he drove towards the danger, picking up the wounded and those fleeing for their lives. As reported by party-goer Amit Hadar, even when the terrorists shot at him from all directions, he didn't think of traveling and leaving us alone. Asaf waited and rescued everyone who survived on the way. Among other things, they were injured and they were evacuated to a nearby hospital. He was a man larger than life, and we will forever owe him a lot. Yosef didn't have any reason to risk his life for the people he encountered. He wasn't related to them. He didn't know them. He didn't even share the same cultural background as them. And yet, he still decided, I am my brothers and sisters' keeper, thus saving numerous lives, even while putting his own in peril. Another example. Bruna Valano of blessed memory was a young 24-year-old immigrant from Brazil. She too attended the music festival in the desert, and she too was murdered. With just her sister and her mother in Israel and no other relatives or close connections to speak of, her family was worried that they would not meet the required minyan or quorum of 10 people for her burial. And so one of her friends asked the nearby community to please send 8 people so that they could meet that minyan. Well, 8 people turned into 10,000 as folks from all across Israel took it upon themselves to show up for this grieving family and to accompany Bruna in death. Every single one of these 10,000 said to themselves, not only am I my brother's keeper, I am Bruna's keeper. And in doing so, they ensured that neither Bruna nor her family were alone at this, her final hour. How about the Israeli rabbi who saw an announcement asking people to host families from the south? He called 45 minutes after the announcement was made, only to have the man on the other end say, "You're way too late, Rabbi. We already found every family a place to stay." Happy to hear the news, the rabbi was curious. How many families were being hosted? 6,000, the man answered. They had found hosts for 6,000 families in 45 minutes, showing all of us what it truly means to be our brother's keepers. And one final story. When Amir Tibon, his wife Miri, and his 2 young daughters found themselves surrounded by terrorists last Saturday, he made 2 calls, one to a colleague and the second to his father, retired General Noam Tibon. Amir told his father that he and his family were in their safe room, but the terrorists were closing in. His father answered, "Trust me, I will come. Nobody can stop me." And as reported, over the span of 10 hours, this determined father raced from Tel Aviv to his son's home. On the way, he helped IDF soldiers fight off terrorists, and he rescued several survivors of this massacre, including traumatized festival goers and injured soldiers. The general could have driven straight to his son. He could have left the soldiers to fight on their own. And he could have left those fleeing to find someone else to save them. But General Noam Tibon did not. "I am my brother's keeper," he said. And as such, he saved the lives of multitudes, including his beloved son and daughter-in-law and his 2 precious grandchildren. These are just a handful of the hundreds of remarkable stories coming out of Israel right now, stories of heroism and bravery, of altruism and love, stories that remind us we are all keepers of one another. We are all responsible for each other, and we must all look out for and care for each other. This is how we survive. This is how we endure. And this is how we brave the prospect of an uncertain tomorrow, by holding each other up and by catching each other when we fall. And so in this moment of utter grief, devastation, and war, let us find a glimmer of hope in this marvelous symphony of mutual obligation that is playing throughout Israel. May it inspire us to step up for Israel, to give back to Israel, and to help in any way that we can at this critical time. And finally, may it remind us that acting as our brother's keepers is a true privilege in this world, one which yields not only a sense of safety and security, but also a deep and abiding sense of love. For when we know that our neighbors are here for us, and when they know that we are here for them, we all feel safer, and we all feel more loved. O Israel, in your darkest days, you have taught us what it means to be keepers of humanity. May we now strive to do the very same, reaching out to one another, standing strong for each other, and keeping one another always in tenderness, safety, and love. Amen.